Welcome to another episode of Wakile Quick One. Now I think we've become residents at this great law firm of Bowmans. And we have a legend in the game. And I will invite you to now introduce yourself.
Thank you, Marco. My name is John Syekei. I am a partner at Bowmans in Nairobi, and I have been here since 2010. I head the IP and tech practice at Bowmans, but also take care of the same practice in East Africa. My other hat is I sit on the management board of Bowmans, the entire Pan-African practice, as a partner taking care of the East African region.
Okay. Because how we normally do things in this podcast is we are interested in the younger Syekei. Where does the younger Syekei grow up? Where were you born? Where do you go to the formative years in terms of primary school, high school? Take me through that journey.
Okay, yeah. So thanks. I'm a Nairobi born guy. So I was born in Nairobi, grew up in Hurlingham, and went to primary school at Kilimani Primary School, just up the road from home then. And after I finished my KCP, went on to Strathmore School for my high school. And then after that, I received a partial scholarship to go to McGill University in Canada. But it wasn't a full scholarship. And I think my parents then were not I think there was all this fundraising people would do for balance of fees, but they didn't decide to do that. So I think it was go for my local university choices. And I had chosen to study engineering at Moi University. So that's where I went because my dad was a professor in the medical school in Moi. So it was really just to be, family to be together. So Moi was my choice, went there. And engineering was actually my interest in the first place. So even for McGill, it was to study computer and software engineering. So at Moi, I got into the class, electrical engineering class. And it was very different from what I thought. The lectures, the experience. I mean, I didn't really enjoy it. It was not like my physics classes when I was at Strat. So it was really different. And after a month in university, there's a whole transfer application you can do to move from one faculty to another. So I put in my application to transfer, and that's when I decided, let me transfer to the law faculty. And that's the beginning of the journey. In terms of law, I started law. So the other class, the law school had already commenced when I joined. But then I joined them, I think, 2 months after they had started the first semester, and moved on from there. Choice of studying reading law was really maybe was the back of my mind. And many of my former classmates from school always wonder because they always thought I was going to go into the sciences because I was quite strong at physics, maths, chemistry, biology, and that was really my thing. But law was not something they ever thought. So the only reason why that was there was because my dad had a nickname for me because I think he had some friends who were judges at his watering hole when we used to live in Hurlingham. It was a Hurlingham bar that was somewhere around there, and that's probably where he spent a lot of his time in the evenings. And where I think there were some judges who used to go there, and he used to call me John Justice Fletcher. So I think that stayed, and I think also I had some uncles who are in the legal profession as well. So I just thought, you know what, let me try the law. I'm not too excited about the engineering class, and I moved across, and I enjoyed being in the law school.
So what are some of the core memories you have from university days?
Yeah.
Who are some of your friends at this time?
Yes. Yeah. So a couple of people. I mean, I think those that stand out are there's a guy called Sam Olunga who's now based in the US, in New York. He is running his own law firm, but before that he was working for, I think, Davis Polk, one of those big Wall Street law firms. A very good friend of mine, and also we used to be in the rugby team together for the Moi University rugby team. And I think in our year we won, I think, third year, we won that thing called Tenaside. And there used to be Nakuru.
Nakuru Tens.
Yes, that one. Yeah, so I remember, and he was our captain. I used to play as a winger for that team. And so we really bonded around football. And then I think also with other colleagues from uni, being part of the university election board for the university elections. It's very interesting. I appreciate this IABC guys, and now it's quite hectic. That thing is serious when you're running university elections. It's quite serious. So I was on that. I also remember chairing the law school magazine, the university law school magazine, as the chief editor in chief, with some colleagues who are now out there. One of them is a lecturer, others are practicing. But I think a lot of nice memories. I think in the evenings, studying for exams and hanging out, watching football, and just spending time, with doing those things we do as uni students. In fact, the first thing I just need to add is that for the first 2 years of my uni, I was a day scholar. So I used to take the bus from the Eldoret town to go to the campus, which was, I think, maybe 20 kilometers from the town. And in the evenings after the lectures, I'd take the bus and go back home. So it was quite tricky because I missed out on those first 2 years of what happens in the evenings and how people hang out after. But then I think in third year, I said, no. I spoke to my dad. I said, I need to stay in the main campus. So I managed to get a room in the main campus. Then it was a change because living at home all those years, even Strathmore was a day school. So that was my beginning. I've never experienced living alone till then. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So, and this is for selfish reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who knows me would realize I have a big passion for rugby.
Yeah.
So after uni, do you play for any other team, or after university you just left it there?
Oh yeah, so I left it there. What happened after uni is I had the interest, but then I went for those evening tryouts at Queen's, and they used to play touch rugby or just rugby. So I used to go for that, but I think that to play the interest to play fizzled out. It became more of I was interested in being a fan, watching every Saturday when they were playing games, Kenya Cup and all that. But also I then got into almost I decided I got interested in the management side of things of the Queen's rugby team, and I think 2 years I was one of the in that committee that managed the Queen's rugby team. In fact, I think helped them with some legal issues as well, looked at the constitution, things like that. But yeah, so that's what happened. But I was an avid watching rugby. Now the problem is, many years down the line, I've now become I follow more of is it now it's not Tri Nations anymore, it's
Six Nations.
There's Six Nations, and then there's the Southern Hemisphere competition and stuff. So I follow that
championship.
Yes, the championship, the rugby championship. Yeah, so Wallabies has always been the team I've followed for a long time. Springboks second to that, and the Northern Hemisphere, not really. I mean, I like England now and then, but my two teams are that I like watching are Wallabies and Springboks.
Guess what?
Yeah.
We share the same thing.
Yeah.
I am a huge Wallabies supporter.
Yeah.
Even now, when you're going through this difficult time.
Yeah.
And I keep remembering telling my friends we have a banter group for rugby.
Yeah.
I normally remind people of that statement by George Gregan. I remember.
Yes.
4 more years, boys.
Yeah.
And you actually look like George Gregan.
Gregan was a super guy, man.
Yeah. You actually look like Gregan.
Yeah.
Well, come to think of it. All right, let's go back to the story.
Yeah.
So you get done with Moi.
Yes.
How was the experience with Kenya School of Law? And the reason why I'm asking this is I want to see if what we have now and what you had, if there are so many differences.
Yes. Yeah. So now for us, the lucky thing is at that time, we didn't have this requirement to go and sit in the school for any lessons. And this is because if you had qualified at the university, you submit your documentation, they look at it, and they're fine. They exempt you. So we were getting exemptions. And even exams, if I'm not wrong, I think we were exempted from that. It is only now pupilage book to have that completed during your pupilage, which was very different. The only thing I remember is going in and having the speech from the school, the dean of the school at that time, telling us that this is a very serious profession you've selected, and we were a large number of us, and some of you will succeed, some of you will not. But once you go through this and you're admitted, I wish you all the best. So I remember that. Then after that, that was it. We all then went into our various pupillage programs, and we survived through that and put in our applications, and then went in through admission. So we were trained largely in practice, and not going to be taught again in school. So I think that was a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because also again, but I think I'll leave that for the latter, because I know that there's a story that is going to come up as a result of that.
Yeah.
So you get done with Kenya School of Law.
Yeah.
Where do you undertake your articles of pupillage?
Yeah, so my pupillage was undertaken at Daly and Figgis, which is now CMS. Before Daly and Figgis, Daly and Inamda, now CMS. So that's why I undertook my pupillage. And there's a funny story, because before that, I mean, I had received a pupillage offer from Hamilton Harrison Matthews, which is where I had spent my 2 years. The year before, third year and at fourth year before pupillage, I spent that school, what do you call it, the internship, 2-3 months working at HHM. So I actually thought I was going to be at HHM, but then Daly and Figgis was the law firm that first of all gave me. I think they go through pupillage interviews, and so that one I received the offer the following day after the interview, and then they were paying very well. And we were like, we need this money because it's good, man. You enjoy your weekends with this cash. So I signed up to Daly and Figgis, which was a very, very nice experience. And that's where I got to meet many of my colleagues and friends to date who were pupils with me, but also some who were associates at the time. And the great Evans Monari, who was there as he had just made partner at Daly and Figgis.
And
yeah, and so that was my pupillage at the time. Yeah, so I spent time in litigation under Ruby Nadar, and corporate with Hamish Keith, who is now, I think, retired, and conveyancing a little bit with just forgotten the name of there was a lady who was in charge of our conveyancing practice. But yeah. Yeah.
And then, do they retain you, or what is the conversation around that?
So retention was offered. So they used to take very few. So we were 5. They offered us all retention. Mine was litigation, and I think I don't think I was. It's the same thing, I think, that happens with our lawyers now, junior lawyers. So I had my. And now I'm noticing it. It's happening to them maybe year 2-3 of practice, but I had my itchy feet then at pupillage level, because I was like, I'm not sure I want to be a litigation lawyer and an associate. And I remember we used to walk from Daly and Figgis offices, Londra House, all the way to Milimani, then walk back. I was like, hey, I'm not sure. Let me try something else. I applied to Deloitte. I applied to PwC. A few other places, and I got a spot in the Deloitte program for graduate trainees. So between the litigation holding over and Deloitte, I went to Deloitte, and then at Deloitte did that whole year. I think it was 2 years. Had some nice training, exposure to things which you were not seeing in law firms at the time. They were a bit more advanced, these audit firms, compared. Law firms now are really catching up and have caught up in many respects, and maybe past because they have corporatized, become more corporate institutions. But at that time, they were not really like people think. An organization like Deloitte was really advanced, global, and all that. So the training was great. Being flown to Mombasa for more training, come back. the possibility of international secondments. It was great, that, but then the work was, initially you move around. There was audit, there's tax, there's what. Then I was find myself more in audit. And then so that was that period before you get admitted. So it takes around a year and a half to 2 years to get admitted post Pupilage. So I was there that period. And then once I was just about done, I think the Christmas before the year of admission, which was 2005. So that year before, I spent my Christmas day counting best bics, I think bags at industrial area. And then I said, this one is not going to work for me. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll just finish this thing. Once I get admitted, or just before admission, I think I want to go back into practice. Yeah.
You've mentioned, you've called it itchy feet.
Yeah.
How crucial is it in a lawyer's in practice?
Yeah.
How critical is that element of itchy feet?
Yes, I think it's key in the sense that depends on when that happens. It's unfortunate if you develop itchy feet when you've spent 15 years in one organization and really embedded yourself and built human capital and invested there. It's great if that happens early years in your career, because I think it gives you different perspectives around work ethic, work cultures, different work environments, different ways of doing things, and it broadens your mind in terms of growth. So, for instance, my perception of what it was being a partner in an organization like a law firm and a smaller, organization, because Daily and Figures, or I was at HHM before, those firm was not as big as the Deloitte practice, and the Deloitte partners there, and the way they carried themselves and what they were doing. So you kind of get different perspectives. And I think this thing of moving from, say, if you're in-house, if you're in a law firm, you do your Pupilage, you go to a bank or you go somewhere else, then you understand maybe where your best fit is, and then you can go and focus on the area where you're now settled. And I think it helps with settling, because the problem is that if you wait too long, it becomes tricky, especially if you get responsibilities in life, family and stuff. So now quitting your job, just, you don't know where, what next. But it happened during the pandemic. A lot of people left their jobs, but before that, it was quite difficult. But I think it's really important to try out different things before you really settle.
And let's. So you go back to practice.
Yeah.
So where do you find yourself?
Yes. Yeah. So I find myself at MMC, Muriumungai. And that's where I started when I got back. And again, so with MMC, it was again fantastic. They were looking at growing the business. They were very meritocratic in terms of their selection of who works there. And I joined. I was recruited to join, funny enough, the litigation practice. And so I was like, okay, let's go. But I had this thinking of what I want to do with my practice. I had already started thinking about intellectual property, commercial IP, tech, licensing, franchising, that sort of thing. And I knew this is where I wanted to go. So even in my interview with the partners who were recruiting at the time, I mentioned this is really my focus, but I mean, the space right now is this, and I'll do this work, and it's great. And I'll be able to focus on it. So I joined the disputes practice. I was with Nelson Harvey at the time there as one of the CEOs. I think he was a senior associate. And Nani Mungai was the head of that practice. I think Peter Mungai. There was a group of senior litigation people there. And I spent, I think, for the first 2 years, litigation. I used to go to court a lot because they had a lot of matters, and everyone had their docket, and I spent a lot of time in Milimani courts. I think I went to Kisii. I went around Kenya on court matters there, and that training was fantastic for those 2 years. And I always tell guys, corporate law, it could be in whatever, other types of law, but litigation really gives you a strong background in terms of basis of where all this, when you're looking at things and advising the issues that could crop up in disputes. After 2 years, I then moved into conveyancing. I did conveyancing with Esther Umlele for I think a year and a half, working for banks, various banks, and really learning how to do business development, and actually spend time with clients, engage with clients, build relationships with clients, which was very strong. That was a very strong focus at Murium Guy, now MMC Asafo. And that was very key, building that ability to think and to generate business. And then the year and a half, then after that, I think that was after 4 years doing that, is when now we then decided, let's go into IP, and I said I was doing IP.
So because it's quite a shift from litigation to IP.
Yes.
So what forms what makes you realize that I want to go into IP? Is it passion? Is it what leads you towards that direction?
Okay, so IP, yes. So it's passion and interest from not university, from uni days, but also from the time when I was working at Hamilton, Harrison and Matthews. So, and the connection again was with disputes. So working with Kiragu Kimani, who was then the partner in charge of, he was in charge of me in the sense that I was working in his team. He got an interesting IP litigation brief for Nivea, I think, which is now a reported case. Nivea, Nivelin, Bayersdorf was the client, and we went and we did some good work there. And I was helping with all the research. I did all this research, and it was amazing. And get all these cases, put them together, help with the brief, help with everything, and see the way the matter developed into the success that it was, and the fact that it was a precedent around similarity of marks. And I think that experience got me thinking about intellectual property. And before that, I had a big interest in technology and science, and IP as a law that protects that. And in fact, one of the funny things is that when I applied for my internship at HHM, I had said I wanted to practice intellectual property law in my application letter. And that was one of the things. And I know HHM was one of the firms that did that type of work. Daly and Figures, same thing, had some IP practice, and I learned a lot about filing of trademarks from. So I learned the dispute bit with that matter at the time when I was at HHM. But I really didn't do the filing work. But when I got to Daly and Figures, I had an interest, and I was helping them with the filing work as well. So there was a clerk there who handled all the trademark filing stuff that was going on. And I used to support and go to Kipi with him and things like that. So I had an actual interest in it. It's only that there was very limited opportunity for this area of practice, because it was really controlled by 2 or 3 law firms in this country, either Kaplan or Hamilton's or Tugujog and Quach or Daly and Figures, but to a small extent. So you really didn't think, but I knew that there was, if one had an opportunity, you can grow in this area. I really wanted to do it, but there was nothing. So that jump. But then the in my conversations over the 4 years with the senior partners at MMC, they kind of saw there's a possibility here, and they were actually interested in investing in that area, and they said, oh, let's see how it works. So, we tried to see, write to some clients. I had some knowledge of how things are done in this particular practice area from my time at Daly and Figures, and even before at Hamilton as a student. So we put in together proposals, sent them out to law firms around the world about helping them with the IP stuff here. And slowly, things started coming. And I think when things started coming a little bit more is when they said, okay, let's focus. Let's try and focus on this thing. It might be a good thing to get into. Yeah.
And so you create the department for IP at MMC?
Yeah.
And when how long did you stay there, and when did you get here?
Okay, yeah. So I stayed there for a number of years, and we worked very well together. They were leading. I was just they're helping to support, to execute, and they were helping with bringing in the business and stuff. So we did that together for I think 2-3 years. Then started rolling over, and it started generating its own, standing on its own. And I think I was there until 2010. So 5 years actually. So 2005 to 2010. And I left in 2010. early January 2010, and joined Bowmans in Feb 2010 at the time. Yeah. So at the time I left, yeah. So I had just made junior, salaried partner in 2007 after my litigation practice, because I didn't really enjoy it, but I was good at closing those matters. So it was good in terms of revenue generation and stuff. So managed to go to partnership, and I guess once you're in the room and you're a partner, you'll be able to, you can talk to the growth of a particular practice line, and that's how also I think the IP practice grew. But I left in 2010 and joined Bowmans.
So let me ask you, you find yourself in an area where we don't have much expertise here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You are, you are a pioneer in that area at that time. How do you consider making such a huge and difficult decision to start creating around that area when you don't have much expertise around this part of the world? And also you realize that many, even economically, for the longest time it had been not, people never give it a serious consideration.
Yeah.
So how do you make that decision? And then maybe to tie it down to a question that Johnson would ask if he was here, specialization. Should you specialize when you're early into the practice, or should you wait for your itchy feet and then you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So those two go very well together there. Yeah. So for me, making that decision to go into this area is risk. So risk and opportunity. So what I saw at the time was that of course, there was not much in terms of you'd think. You probably would think that at the time, IP work was largely seen as trademark work, which was largely seen as filing work, which was really commoditized work, and the fees are really, if you look at the ARO, it's 30,000. It's only now they are moving it up to be 15,000, 30. So you're like, you must really file a large number of trademarks to make any margin from this type of work, and it looks very rote. But there was a lot more to it. I could see that this is not, the filing gives you access to a client who actually has other brand protection issues, licensing, commercial IP issues that they might need advice on, besides even audits on the IP and things like that, which is where you can make margin. And all I needed was support to access those clients. There was no aggressive competition. Now it's happening. You can see just across the board over the years what has happened with all the corporate law firms, all the law firms in Nairobi, and just worldwide, where things have changed. But in those days, a lot of lawyers, even in those days of 2005, a lot of lawyers were used to just sitting and waiting for the instruction to come, not really doing that thing called business development, where you actually go and you chase for something and you educate a client as to, there's these particular issues you might face and you might need my services for this and this, and I can actually help you with this. So that wasn't really happening. And I noticed, where do I compete? There was conveyancing, which I was like, okay, I've done this. There was litigation, which everyone, all the big firms and all the firms here were doing. Most of my friends were litigation lawyers. And then now there was corporate, commercial, M&A, which again, was limited to, I think, 3-4 law firms at the time. Now it's amazing. There's a lot more people who are doing it. But that time it was 3 or 4 law firms. And then there was IP, again, 2 or 3 law firms. Now for IP, I saw who was the competitor. So I started, because I was quite interested in seeing who's actually doing this work. So I listed the names of the guys who are doing this work. And I was like, I don't see these guys out there speaking at LSK events. I don't see them volunteering, going to startup events, the hub, the iHub, things like that. They're not doing any of that stuff. So I think there was a gap here which can be exploited if somebody is really eager, interested, and enthusiastic about it, and has learned. So I actually spent some time working out on a business plan, coming up with a business plan around how this should work. So writing articles, speaking at LSK events, client events in the office, attending seminars that were being run and speaking on an IP issue or trademark. So I remember doing a lot of LSK CLEs those early days. In fact, I think probably we had like 7 IP files in the office, and I was doing CLE at LSK on Mombasa Road, talking to guys around how trademarks are created, how their infringement happens, things like that. And that then built some knowledge on my side, because I was spending a lot of time preparing for those. But then also market reputation, in the sense of word of mouth, even with the lawyers who are there attending those events, who are then joining corporates and things like that. And IP was slowly becoming an important thing, not just even in Kenya, but cases started being filed here, and so people are understanding, okay, there's this trademark issue, there's this. But then also globally, with the advent of the big tech, the global, the software companies, the giants, Google, Microsoft, the biggest value that they had was their IP. And then on the back of that, globally, IP started exploding. So the amount of intellectual property being protected worldwide shot up, I think. And at the time also, Kenya's economy was also really doing well. There was a lot of interest in foreign direct investment, investment into Kenya, and a lot of people were seeking to protect their brands, go to court to enforce their rights, deal with copyright issues, things like that. And that lack. So I think there was some lack, serendipity, the lack, because I was there at the right time, had the interest, but also I was willing to take the risk, because it could have failed. In the sense that, and I know a lot of my friends used to have coffee in the evenings and stuff, and they're telling me, or a drink, and they'll say, how do you survive on that? Because, those are probably 5 trademarks in a month. How much is that? Because, are you serious? Because how can that work? But then I was like, no, just keep trying and I'll see. And yeah, slowly one client led to another, especially the big international multinationals or international law firms that do a lot of this work. Get one of those, get another one, and then it starts working. Yeah.
And so when you come to Bowmans, is there an established IP department?
No.
You come and create it.
Yeah.
How has been that experience?
Wow, it has been very interesting. The beginning was, I was very optimistic, but then privately, of course, I was not sure. I was hoping, that whatever it is I had sold when I was coming in was going to work. Because I came with this thing and saying, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And Richard and Philip, who interviewed me, then said, okay, we'll try. They were a bit skeptical at that time. But over the years, I've said, wow, okay, that was a good decision that we made. But they also had, at the time when I joined Bowmans, they had a very strong IP practice in South Africa through the Bowmans relationship. They had a very strong SA IP practice, which now has moved to another law firm. But so our colleagues in South Africa knew about the value of this practice if it grows and it does well. And so I got a lot of support to attend international conferences on IP and trademarks, like the International Trademark Association, INTA. So I started going in 2000. I had gone when I was at MMC 2008, I think 2009, and then 2010. Bowmans also said, keep going and keep building the networks and the connections. So I continued doing that every year, and I've been doing that every year since then. Apart from this year, where one of my colleagues attended. And what happened was that risk I took, I think, worked out. But and Bowmans was willing to invest in building this practice with me. It's been very different in the sense that they have a lot of systems, and the brand has big reach globally. So there's a lot of clients who know Bowmans, and then you talk to the IP side, tech side, but also the growing of the team. At the beginning, I was doing everything myself, so I'll draw the application forms. I will file at HIPPI. I had a clerk and a secretary. So between the three of us, we do the tariffs, we quote on emails. We were very responsive, very quick in responding to client queries and requests, because we noticed that if there was a gap in the market as well at the time, because you get an email and you respond a few days later, 4 days later, 5 days later. With us, it was within 24 hours. That same day, we'll be back to you, and if possible, back to you with this answer, with our view on your question. So that was something we started. Then also we came up with some principles for this team. This is what we need to do. Be very quick in reverting back to client, acknowledge response, Make sure that you discuss with client before you invoice them, talk to them about certain things. Just client care driven, but also very hungry and enthusiastic about getting that kind of work, writing articles. So we suddenly then we recruited one lawyer to join as it started growing, and then another lawyer slowly, and then another clerk, another lawyer, and now we are 26 people in the team, 4 partners and eight other, actually 9 other lawyers who just focus in this particular area, which is IP and tech advice, commercial advice. Yeah.
And I see that you are named as a Bowmans head of ICT or IP and IT in East Africa.
Yes.
How's been the experience, especially countries countries like Uganda, and Tanzania?
Yeah. So I think it's been interesting. Where they are is perhaps where we were 2005, 2006. But the laws are similar to ours. It's and they're more they understand more. I think a lot of the lawyers there now travel a lot to international conferences, as do Kenyan lawyers now. In the past, not many used to do that. And they've developed a lot of knowledge around how to practice in this particular space. But then the numbers are not like Nairobi. They're not like Kenya. They're not like South Africa or Nigeria or Egypt or Morocco. They're not as many. So and this specialization, and I'll probably need to go back to that specialization question that you had asked before. Specialization is not seen as a good thing to do there currently, because they're all generalists, and because they're generalists, you'll find you're in court today on a commercial dispute. Tomorrow it's a family issue. The next day it's a trademark filing. Then the next day you're advising on a will or something. Or then the following day it's a banking mandate where you're helping with some borrowing and so they do everything. So finding somebody who is actually going to just sit and focus in this particular area to build the knowledge. If you don't have the work, do the non-billable work, which is do the BD, write the articles, read in the area, have some podcasts, immerse yourself in it, go out there to see clients, attend industry events, do that and focus that they don't have. But then they're slowly doing it now. I mean, like in our team in Tanzania, Uganda, Mauritius, Uganda with our colleagues there who we are best friends with, Mauritius, and even now going down to Zambia. They are developing lawyers who are doing largely IP work, of course, doing some other work to keep themselves busy, but not too much. So they're probably 80%, 20% doing that. So you find they're not many, maybe 2 or 3. Like in Tanzania, I think there are 3 of them. But then they will do a bit of employment law, employment work as well. But then they will largely, whenever any work comes in this area, it goes to them. And you can tell from even the advice, you can tell from the calls, when they're having calls with clients, they're a little bit, they're more, I would say, a notch above those other lawyers who are practicing the area, who are more generalists in the space. And going to that question you asked me about specialization, I think it's important to do everything, to be a generalist, as far as I'm concerned, in the early years of your career, at least 5 to 6 years. Rushing into specialization too early, you might not get to understand all the issues that would arise in a particular scenario, but also for a very, very, for something like IP is extremely specialized. I mean, banking and finance, you can still do other things, commercial, corporate stuff. Litigation, you can say you're a tax litigator, but you can still do commercial litigation. You can do other litigation. It's fine. But for IP, it is so narrow that if you decide you want to go there, you've got to be sure that you want to do that, because there could be times when you can sit for 2 months and you're wondering, okay, what's happening here? There's nothing, nothing at all at my desk. And that used to happen those early days. And I used to wonder, wow, what's going to happen? In fact, I think one of Richard and he once decided to save me by bringing me on an M&A transaction. So I was like, So I handled that M&A, but I think Richard was looking. I think by the time the transaction ended, he said, "John, you're a good IP lawyer." And that was a message which I've never forgotten. So I focused on my IP and
Yes.
left that. No more M&A is not for me. But that specialization I think is really important after, because clients are looking for sophisticated legal advice now these days, and the competition is just too much. How do you stand out? How do you differentiate yourself? You can't be too general and differentiate yourself. Unless you're, there's no competition around you. Yeah, like the two lawyers in a whole city. Right now, you have to, differentiate to compete and rise to the top in that particular specialism. I think in this 21st century, where we are right now, and I think if you don't, then you struggle, and that's why you're finding like lawyers who are not able to move to the next level because their firms are not moving to the next level because they are all doing the same thing, can't differentiate what they do, and clients are just going to choose based on price and pricing with respect to the services that they want to buy from that law firm. So specialization then also helps you with pricing. It helps you with how much you can charge for your services, because the clients then understand, and then the peer review in the market and global recognition, or depending on your client list, a lot of this is word of mouth. Will say that guy helped me with this particular matter. I think he does a lot of that type of work. I think I could recommend. And I think the amount of work lawyers get based on recommendations is not to be taken for granted. I think, and a lot of those recommendations are on the back of, they used to be, that's a good lawyer. But these days, people like, what type of lawyer? What kind of law does that person practice? Because my issue here is it's not general. I need somebody who understands this particular 3 points, and do you have? And so then now you're finding a lot of the law firms are having multidisciplinary teams. So you have a commercial lawyer, an IP lawyer, and an employment lawyer joining a call or coming into a meeting, and each of them speaking to just that particular issue that the client is facing, and the clients see the value. Yeah.
Okay, I have noticed something about especially big law firms.
Yeah.
Here, where they get to have offshoots.
Yeah.
For example, I've seen you have an offshoot of is it HR?
Yes.
There's that.
Yeah.
I think I've seen some other law firms also having different offshoots,
Yeah.
just within the same firm.
Yeah.
Do you have an offshoot of strictly IP, ICT technology in Bowmans?
Okay, so when you say that, you mean like a department, a team, or consultancy, or what?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I
Yeah.
understand that. Yeah. So no, it's something we've thought about, but we work closely with third-party providers who would help with that, especially in areas like data protection. You need this ICT or tech guys who actually understand things like cybersecurity and things like that. But we don't have an offshoot, so to speak, consulting arm around this particular area. So it's just done by if it's a consulting issue or question or project, we will do it and outsource to a specialist. Say if it's an ICT person or it's an academic, they'll join the team to deliver on the project. Yeah.
Now where has my mind gone? Because there was a particular. Oh, now someone asked because we shared that you're going to interview you, and they asked, how has been transitioning from IP to technology for you?
Yes.
And is that the direction is that where you see the future?
Yes. So the transition started, I think, 2017 for me, 2017, 2018. And I think for me, at the time, the thinking was how to grow in this market and how to grow across Africa. A lot of the work we were doing then was limited to Kenya and a bit of Uganda, Tanzania. But to scale it across Africa, we were going to compete. If it's in a commoditized area, we're going to compete on filing of trademarks, and yet there are local law firms there that would be cheaper than us and have the on the ground knowledge. It would be difficult to compete. And so we were thinking about how best to marry the commercial IP, the IP knowledge, and a new sector, or this sector of in tech, which we saw as the one that was really, investing in Africa, growing around the world. And the big tech were opening offices here at the time. Microsoft's opened here earlier, Google's opened here, a lot of these other tech. And then now with this startup scene in Kenya that was really boiling nicely. And I think I started getting that. It was from those early days of I think I gave some talks at iHub, and talking to some of those developers and those startup guys there who are coming up with very interesting stuff. I was like, a lot of them, because I would go and talk to them about trademarks, IP, protecting their IP for their companies when they're setting up as startups, and tell them that this is how Google was set up, this is how Microsoft set up, this is what those guys were developers like you. And then, they had their brand, they protect their brand, don't want to have issues. Then listening to them and their stories around tech, I was like, I think it's better to be on the side of now working with these guys when they are running their businesses in this technology space, rather than telling them, because right now we are limiting ourselves to protecting one aspect of their property, which is their brand. But then we want to service this company, this tech startup. So what do we do? What skills do we need, and who do we need, and what do we need to know about this area? So we got into that, and it took a few years to actually get some traction. Get some, client base. A lot of them were those startups at the time. Some have now moved on over the years. Because maybe their owners have been bought out or have left the country or things. But I learned a lot working with that startup team, and my team was doing a lot of that work also pro bono, or attending evening events and speaking at those events, and we were just absorbing information. And then a few years later, this tech practice then started picking up. Besides the startups, we started attracting the mid-level players who would then be the service providers to the big tech people, and working with them on their contracts. We started seeing what are the issues that are being raised. And then on the banking clients of the office, we started helping them with the acquisition of software platforms, because a lot of them were now integrating technology in delivery of services. A lot of the times the only tech they had was ATMs. And then now they started having those platforms internally, set up very expensive platforms, buying them from, the oracles of this world, or from India, Infosys, I think, and uploading those into their systems, banks, and then insurance companies, setting up these systems in the back end. Again, the team I was working with, as we were growing, I think we were 5 lawyers, were then getting involved in advising the banks on the acquisitions, and not the other side, not the sellers, because those were contracts which they'll tell you these are not negotiable, and then of course you have to talk to them and stuff. But then with that, then came the build and operate construction type IT contracts, where people are investing in tech. They're hiring developers who have got skills to come and build an IT system for them for their business, and working on the contracts around who will own the IP rights, who will do what, how will things be shared. You have to pay the developers, make sure that they do not have any rights left in terms of ownership of the IP, because you've not assigned all the rights to yourself, and you have and that you commission them to do this. So those kind of discussions, then developing that further and say, okay, now we are now doing this kind of work. We're getting known because we really, of course, went for the corporate clients of the office and talked to them about, we can help you with this. So building that, and then now slowly from there, cascading to helping them in setting up their systems in East Africa. And again, now we started understanding, okay, so it's just commercial law, it's contracts, there's the IP clauses we need to draft. Later on, the data protection clauses have now come in. That time there wasn't any until 2019. And then now, after that, with doing all that, we then now started also getting a lot of inquiries from law firms abroad around helping them with this IT contracts, things like that. And then again, I think recommendations from them started getting some multinational direct tech clients. So it's taken a long time. I think we're still growing, because there's aspects of things we need to get better at. and stronger in, at like a more specialized area of litigation, like tech litigation, which has a lot of its own nuances. And I feel like that's where we need to get stronger in, because there's a lot of that happening around the world. All these Google lawsuits being, these Microsoft suits, Apple, fines that they are facing, competition law and IP and competition law and tech has become, there's a lot of issues that are arising in that space, and the regulators are really looking at these technology companies. They're probably also going to come into Africa, and those are areas where we need to go to. But that's how we have transitioned slowly. Yeah.
So every year, Chambers and Partners, they're doing the rankings. World Trademark, what? You know what I'm talking
about? World Trademark Review.
Yes. They always do rankings.
Yes.
And you have consistently, since I knew Chambers and Partners, that was way back in my Pupilage days, one name kept on coming. Band 1, intellectual property, John Syekei. Every, and which is the other,
managing IP.
Yeah, managing IP. Yeah. So you always consistently rank over there. So what is, how important are honors and awards in this profession of ours? Yes.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I think for me, it's there are very many of these awards out there for very many different things. But I think for some of them, it's the market recognition by your peers, but also by the industry and the current clients and potential clients. There are certain clients who take this very seriously, in the sense that they expect you to be in chambers as part of the what do you call it, shortlisting for any project. But then there are others who it doesn't really matter. It's the lawyer who they need to know. Does that lawyer know what they're talking about? I think awards and honors are useful in terms of allowing a person who doesn't really know the legal industry in a market to identify who are the guys, who are the players in this particular space. But those who already know. But then if you are looking and researching, it will help. So global multinationals, for them, I think they take it very seriously when they're entering a market. They need to know what are the rankings of the people who are here. And they feel that entities like Chambers will do a lot of research before putting anyone there. And they think that they can rely at least with that first before they do their interviews of these lawyers that they want to hire. But then beyond that, there are also others where they will rank you because they want you to pay for some page in the subscription and all that, which it might not be something that you would want to do because it might not be useful. But then definitely rankings in certain particular publications really go a long way, especially for the international market. For the local market, only sophisticated players, I think, would really be that interested in that, because for them, they're on the ground and they know who their friends are, they know who the lawyers are, they speak a lot. But for the global players and for inward foreign instructions into a market, I think those rankings are important.
You can give this a very political answer.
Yeah.
So we have an IP bill that seeks to consolidate KIPI, Kikobo, and ACA.
Yeah.
And have them housed together in one area.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? You can give a very political answer because yes.
This has been this issue of the IP bill and merging has been around for a while. Starts then stops. I think first of all, my view really is that I don't know how this would work. It will be good if we actually have the back end systems sorted out, and the people who are who can run this joint organization carefully select them. But I don't know whether we are there yet. I mean, we'll put these organizations together, but then will it really work? I mean, it's good, I think, in my view, and is the best case scenario if we actually have one body that handles IP in Kenya. You have your Kikobo. Sometimes it does its own things, and you also wonder, can they enforce? Can they help clients ask a lot of questions? Can we really go to Kekobo for this. Then you have ACA with the counterfeits coming with its, it has its own rules, regulations, requirements that sometimes people get, confused about in terms of, are they adding more barriers to trade? Then you have got your KIPI, which deals with IP, and patents, trademarks, designs. And then at the back end, you have the company's office there, where, people can register company names that look, are identical to trademarks. There's a lot of confusion there. And so having one entity that you can deal with is best. But then there's a lot of, I feel, inefficiencies still in these organizations that needs to be sorted out. I really don't know whether you destroy everything and start from even the ground. No, having the bill and the act is one thing, but the people, the organization will be the people. The building is not important, but the people and the systems that they will set up there is what's key. And I don't know whether we are going to be there yet. We might have the act, but it might still just be the act. But then the same people and same organizations will still be in play, and we might still have the issues we're still facing today.
I think for the last question, what I will ask is, when John is not in a suit, when he's not doing crazy hours in the office, what does John do?
So yes, racket games. I play a lot of squash and tennis as well. Paddle, not so. I mean, paddle is a new thing, I think, but not so. I mean, squash and tennis, and a bit of, I used to play quite a bit, but now it's slowed down. Golf. And then besides that, those three things, the rest are, I don't have many other hobbies. I'd probably enjoy reading now and then, but my biggest thing is sports and watching sports. So I watch most every type of sport apart from cricket, which I really struggled. That's the only one I think I struggle. And watching horse racing and things like that. But every other sport, it would be very hard for me not to give my view on it, because I think I watch. I watch rugby, football, basketball, Formula One. I actually enjoy it because I like the competition bit of it. And then but for me, the rackets, now I just need to take care of my knees, but squash is a sport that I really enjoy.
I think we have so many similarities, because another aspect of me is that I watch all sports except American sports.
Okay. That's another one. American football is also another one I don't understand. I try to compare it with rugby and I'm like, no.
So I think that's something that you also we have in common. I don't. Is there anything? I think with that we are done. I don't think there's anything that has not come out. Or is there something that you want to come out?
No. I think that's all.
So
thank you.
Tumeweza ona?
Yes. Almost 3 minutes. 2 minutes. 1 hour.
Perfecto. Siniva.
Cheers, man.
Cheers. It was the easy conversation. Look at that camera and say Wakili quick one.
Wakili quick one.
Thank you.